Before we get into today's video, I would like to give a shout out to one of our newest subscribers, Ruben SH. Thank you for subscribing, and welcome to the family. And now on with today's video. Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Dreon, and welcome back to Pathfinder Hero Frame, where we take a look at the ancestries within Pathfinder 2nd Edition and see what backgrounds and classes best fit those ancestries, so you can create a basic character for your next tabletop RPG. And today we are looking at what has to be one of my least favorite animal-based ancestries, the Catfolk. Or as they are known within their own culture, the Amuran. The Catfolk are stereotypical cats. They are lazy, they are curious, and they like destroying things for absolutely no reason. Wait, that's regular cats. Catfolk are actually a little bit more gentler, we'll say. Yeah, I'm not really a cat person. Anywho, that is not going to take away from the fact that catfolk are still weird. Much like the tabaxi of Dungeons and Dragons, they are definitely a curious and talkative folk. Much like with Dungeons and Dragons tabaxis, they will try to learn as much as they can about society outside of their own culture. Now, interestingly, the heritages that are listed in Pathfinder 2nd Edition do have technical ethnic terminologies within Pathfinder 1st Edition. Though which ones exactly match up with which ones, I do not know and do not have time to actually look into. So you will have to figure that out for yourselves. Though I will say there are some that are pretty obvious. Let's go ahead and get started with the heritages of the Catfolk, so we can figure out what exactly a baseline character for this ancestry might be. The ancestries that we currently have within Pathfinder 2nd Edition are as follows. We have Clawed Catfolk, Flexible Catfolk, Hunting Catfolk, Jungle Catfolk, Liminal Catfolk, 9 Lives Catfolk, how absurd, Sharp-Eared Catfolk, and Winter Catfolk. Catfolk have their own tribal setup, with the females leading the tribe. More often than not, these female leaders are sorcerers. But we'll get into the class options here in a second, as we do have backgrounds to go over as well. The backgrounds that are recommended are Acrobat, Artist, Bandit, Courier, Gambler, Hunter, Insurgent, Nomad, Outlander, Root Worker, and Scout. Upon thorough research, I think that some additional backgrounds that can fit with the Catfolk ancestry would be the Black Market Smuggler, the Charlatan, the Dendrologist, that word is sometimes hard to pronounce, Emissary, False Medium, Feral Child, Feybound, the Free Spirit, Herbalist, Magical Merchant, the Merchant, Quick Reborn Soul, Spotter, Squire, and Ward. The Feybound I have tied into the fact that some catfolk will trade with denizens of the First World, which is Pathfinder's version of the Feywild. For your class options, it is recommended that you go with the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Investigator, Sorcerer, Swashbuckler, Ranger, or the Rogue. Those will be the most common classes. Now, with that being said, what subclasses would work with the Catfolk? Well, let's take a look at the lore of this ancestry to try to figure that out. Starting things off with the alchemist. I don't think there are going to be too many alchemists. In fact, I think there will be next to none. Though for those that are sort of healers, I would definitely say an alchemist would take up the chirurgeon or the toxicologist, as some diseases do originate from cat scratches. So it does make sense to have that as a sort of reference. Next is your barbarian. For your instincts, I would definitely recommend the animal, most definitely the cat, spirit, and superstition. Now, the reason I recommend the spirit is that a lot of catfolk do have communications with the spirits. Mostly spirits of nature, but still spirits. And, of course, superstition, for the fact that cats do have a lot of superstition tied into them, like the black cat or the 9 lives. Next is Bard. The only ones that sort of made sense to me for a catfolk to take up would be the Enigma and the Polymath. For your cleric, of course, we are going with the Cloistered Scholar, and for our deities, 2nd edition didn't really give us any choices, but for 1st edition, we do have a small list. The main one, of course, being a goddess of cats, Basset, which we do have in 2nd edition. Other deities that a catfolk might venerate is Sarinye, Shelin, Caden Kelin, Arastil, Desna, and Calistria. Next is the Druid. Of course, a lot of catfolk do have ties to the wilds, to nature, and will do their darndest to protect it. That is kind of their whole shtick. For your druid orders, I would definitely recommend Animal, Leaf, and Wild. Next is the Investigator. I would definitely recommend the Alchemical Sciences and Interrogation for the catfolk. Though I do think that some of the methodologies could work for the catfolk, these two would probably come up more often. Next is the Magus, and really I only see the hybrid study of the Twisting Tree being affiliated with catfolk, most likely the leaders of these catfolk tribes, since, again, catfolk tribes' leaders are spellcasters, and often female. Next is the Oracle, again tying into those spiritual leaders. We have the mysteries of life, lore, and time. Next is the Rogue, probably one of the more common classes that will come up. You're going to have a Racket of the Mastermind, as well as the Thief, though a Ruffian catfolk and a Scoundrel catfolk might come up from time to time, especially some of the more muscular types of cats that your catfolk might be based off of. For the Sorcerer, the bloodlines of the Fae, Hag, Imperial, Nymph, and Undead would probably be accurate. Fae, of course, tying into those merchants that trade with the Fae of the First World. As far as the Hag goes, this mostly just built off the trope of the Witch and the Black Cat. Imperial, of course, going off of, again, some of these leaders being sorcerers. So they would indeed have familial ties to magic. Nymph going off of that nature theme once again, and Undead, once again referring to the 9 lives that some catfolk will have. Next is the Swashbuckler, another class that would probably be very common amongst catfolks. Though the styles that would probably be the most common are Battle Dancer and Gymnast, you can argue that a lot of different Catfolk characters could have some of the other styles, such as Fencer. Next is the Witch, once again tying into that Black Cat and the Witch theme. Baba Yaga would be one such patron, but also having Fate, the Night, the Wild, and Winter would also work for some catfolk. And finally, the Wizard. According to the recommendations from 1st edition, the arcane schools that would best fit the catfolk are going to be Abjuration and Divination, though a lot of catfolk will dip into other arcane schools. So it does also make sense for some catfolk to take up the arcane school of the Universalist. And with that being said, that is all the time I have for you today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video in the comments section below, and what type of catfolk would you create? Until next time, this has been Drayhan, and I am offline.